It's the end of the year, not the end of the world. This time on the 411. We are in an undisclosed location in the Midwest. Why are we here, you ask? Well, I figured if the nuclear bombs were going off, the safest place to be was in the Midwest because, let's face it, who's going to bomb here, right? Right. So we've made it to the end of 2012. Not the end of the world, not the end of the Mayan calendar, not the zombie apocalypse, not the nuclear holocaust that we were all expecting. It's just the end of 2012. So what are we going to do? We're going to look back at the best, worst, craziest, and other stories that have crossed my desk over this past year. So let's get started. Part 1, right now. The iPhone 5 finally debuted in 2012 to record sales and a bit of embarrassment about the new Apple Maps that ousted Google Maps. Now Google Maps is back as a new app for the iPhone 5. You do the math. Immediately, new owners of the faster, slimmer iPhone single began watching Gangnam Style. The titular Korean entertainer's video became the most viewed in the history of the internet and effectively ensured two things. The first, 1 billion views to its official page. If you count the other links, it already is well over 1 billion in just under 6 months. The second thing it ensured, he's sure to be on a one-hit wonder album in about 10 years. Next up, Nicki Minaj and Mariah Carey joined forces on American Idol and summarily started warring with each other, with Miss Minaj threatening to knock Mariah Carey out. Speaking of roguish rappers, hard-hitting rapper DMX found God and is now a deacon in his old church. Enough said. Kony 2012 hit our computers and proved to the old fogies out there that those youngsters in Generation 1.0 have a conscience. Subsequently, the Invisible Children founder and Kony 2012 maker went off the deep end in San Diego when it was rumored that he was caught naked and masturbating in public before being hauled off to jail. Florida saw its share of crazy this year with Trayvon Martin and bath salts, voter suppression, and more. Elmo puppeteer Kevin Clash had a roller coaster of a couple months that saw him being accused of sex with an underage male who recanted a story and later recanted his recanting, only to be accused by at least 3 other men of having sex with him, in many cases while the men were underage. Needless to say, the Clash-Elmo dynamic duo is no more. Lance Armstrong was stripped of his 7 Tour de France titles, stepped down from his Livestrong charity, and was burned in effigy in the English hamlet of the city of Edinburgh. Next up, following calling her a slut and prostitute among a panoply of other insults towards Sandra Fluke and a million women across the country, Rush Limbaugh's radio show lost over 140 sponsors and a good chunk of whatever credibility he has left. He later opined that Romney would win in a landslide. Goodbye to the rest of his credibility. The name Jerry Sandusky became a household name as he was the center of the Penn State child rape machine that brought down Sandusky's career, head coach Joe Paterno's legacy, and nearly the entire Penn State football program for eternity. Shortly after being ousted, Coach Paterno succumbed to his battle with lung cancer at 85, leaving a tarnished, complex image of the football coach. Kansas City Chiefs linebacker Javon Belcher shot his girlfriend, then drove to the stadium and shot himself in front of his coach and general manager. The Supreme Court upholding Obamacare, effectively saving Obama's presidency and re-election, and most likely itself from being labeled the most partisan judicial arm of the Republican Party in 2 generations. The biggest story in Part 1, Hurricane Sandy blasted the East Coast, leaving in its wake billions of dollars in damage and a sober new understanding of climate change. The world will never be the same. That's it for Part 1. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next week for Part 2. This is the 411. I'm Matt Simon.